Well, let's talk about some painting techniques right now, and one of the best ones to tackle are glazing techniques. Now, glazing means we're going to cover the entire piece of watercolor paper. I'm using this little watercolor, half a watercolor card, small 140 pound paper for this, but we're going to cover the entire surface. But to get started, what we want to do is to just get it wet. It's a nice way to say hello to your watercolor paper. Just get it wet with a nice big brush, plenty of water. Get it wet on both sides. Helps it to lay down flat for one thing, but also just helps to even out the surface of paint that we're going to apply. And the way to do a glazing technique is fairly simple. The results of them are something like this, where we get a graduated look to the background painting. And this is a good way to get started on any watercolor, is to put some paint down and just ease it into the paper itself. Now, the one on top here, what we did here was just add some yellow. Now, the key to success on any glazing method is to start in one corner with paint and then stretch it throughout the entire surface. If we're going to incorporate more paint into the piece, we're going to start in that same corner every single time. So every time we need to do something with paint, we're going to start in that one corner and pull it through from there. The reason we do that is we end up with a dark area with more pigment, and as we stretch and stretch and stretch it throughout the painting, it starts to get softer and lighter as it goes. So every time we come in with paint, start in one corner. We're going to do the exact same thing on the other corner, but we'll change colors here. Say we're going to use red like we did in this one, and we're going to start in the opposite corner. And you just start to bring paint into the entire surface. Now, where it meets the yellow, it's going to blend, obviously, and it'll start to soften in and make some nice soft oranges. When you start to see some brush strokes showing up, don't worry about them, just part of the game. But we end up with a very colorful, bright looking little painting already started just like that. Now, once you get it nice and wet, paint running around, picking it up and wiggling around a little bit also will help to move the paint itself and let it blend within itself. So that helps to granulate the paint, which means it breaks it up into little pigment particles and moves them around on the surface. The more of that you want to do, the better off you'll be in terms of getting a soft blend. If you want to add a little water to it, you can, and that'll help to ease those surfaces as well and help to make it blend even more. When you're doing a cloud pattern or a sky pattern, it's very easy to make all that happen with this method. You can't really do it with a paintbrush trying to paint clouds, but if you want to have some lighter and darker areas, you can add a little squirt of water and the paint will move right off for you. You end up with a very bright, fresh little painting popping in. It's very simple and easy to do. But that's how we get started doing a glaze. Now, once we've got that surface ready to go, we just let it dry. Don't have to do anything else with it. Whenever you're happy with it, we just set it aside and let it dry. And if we want to add more to it once it does dry, as this one's all dried here, what we can do is to bring a foreground into our glazed surface, and this will work on any painting anytime. We have to figure out what you want to be on the top and the bottom here. Let's try this and see if this will make it into a nice little painting. But we'll start with some other color. We can pick off a little bit of blue here and maybe throw a tree in on the side here, just like that. And we can also bring a little foreground in, some other colors here, and just bounce a little pattern in there real quickly. Let's see what we end up with. You can put some simple little tree shapes in. When you're doing trees, just make them smaller at the top, bigger at the bottom, and make them be a little dark silhouette that's coming across your painting. The foreground can be done very easily and simply. You don't have to do a whole lot with it. But when we start with some darker color, we can keep pulling more dark color into it. You'll have the feel of a nice little evening sunset. Just appears right in front of it there. And let that sky pattern glow in the background. It's a fun way to approach a little glazing painting just like that. If you want to put a little mountain in the background, you can just borrow some paint here, put a little ridge line in, throw a little hill in the back, and then we'll just softly blend that in. Those are fun to give a try too, but they are quick and simple to do on a small scale on a little watercolor card, but it gives us kind of a fun image to work with right off the bat. But the key is put the glazing on first and let it dry, and then the rest of the painting will literally be a very soft, gauzy little foreground in it, and it makes for a fun painting. It's a fun exercise. The more we do these, the easier and faster they become, but they always look like we really put a lot of effort into them. But the less you do in terms of brush strokes on these, the better off. Let the water flow and let it become its own little painting. But they're a lot of fun to do. So that's how we do glazes. And I do them on great big paintings, big canvases occasionally as well. Same process. Putting that paint down, the reason we want to do that is that it does tend to seal the surface of that watercolor paper. And when we do that, we can have more control, more balance as we go through and paint something on top of that surface. So it lets you have more control as you're putting these little features into your painting. It will react differently than if you were to do it just on raw paper. So that's one of the main reasons to do a glaze. So even if you do a glaze in a very light, very soft background, you still will have that effect of being able to layer on top of it and have a better painting as a result of doing a base painting or a glazing coat before you get started. So it's something we recommend all the time. So give it a try and see, have some fun with it. Never know what's going to show up because it's watercolor. Thank you.